Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Kalki 2898 AD, opening with 5.2 million this weekend, and since it opened on Thursday, it brings its domestic total to 10 million and a worldwide total of $43 million. This is a new Indian film, a new sci-fi action Indian film that is said to be the most expensive Indian film ever. It is said to be converted into US dollars to be a $75 million budgeted movie. It's been a while since one of these Indian movies has cracked into the top 5. I think the last time this happened was, I believe, back during the holidays, Christmas, I believe. And so, yeah, we haven't had one of these really crack in the top 5 for a while. But, you know, as I said many times, it's always nice to see one of these movies crack to the top 5. It brings a sense of diversity to the top 5. And it's always nice to see something unexpected surprise and shake up the box office for sure, especially something that that wasn't really on my radar. I didn't know this thing was coming out, but it was able to grab enough people to crack into the top 5, which, as I said already, is definitely appreciated, and I'm very happy to see something like this crack into the top 5. However, if you're new to this, don't expect it to have a very long life at the box office. These movies are typically very front-loaded. They all do very well in their opening and then plummet after that. So yeah, don't expect this movie to last very long in the top 5 after this weekend. But still, you know, once again, the fact that this movie cracked the top 5 is still rather impressive. It definitely shook up the box office. Definitely something I wasn't expecting, and I mean that in the best way possible. Number 4 was Bad Boys Ride or Die, making 10 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 165 million and a worldwide total of $331 million. Bad Boys Ride or Die continues to do very well. It is now less than 40 million away from surpassing $200 million domestically, which is around where the last film in this franchise ended up back in 2020, you know, before, well, happened. So this is great. It's remaining consistent with the previous installment in this franchise. I think it's going to make enough to get to that milestone. Worldwide, it has already tripled its $100 million budget, which is fantastic to see. If it can keep going and pushing throughout the rest of its theatrical run, it wouldn't surprise me if this gets to 400 million worldwide. There's a lot of competition on the horizon. We're entering July, one of the biggest months for movie going, so that's obviously going to put maybe a bit of a dent into this film's box office performance, but I still think that the word of mouth has been so strong and audience reception has been so positive. People are still going to check out this movie. I think it'll get close or just barely get over that milestone, which again, for how much this cost, is a great achievement. That's pretty much quadrupling this film's budget. They were wise with the budgeting, and they were able to make it good enough to reap the rewards for it, because, you know, Bad Boys Ride or Die is pretty much, you know, still one of the heavy hitters of the summer. It's pretty much going to surpass Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting this to do, and as well, it's pretty much the movie that pretty much got the box office back on track. I know it's been overshadowed by a lot of other movies recently, but I feel like it's gotten unnoticed for the fact that it was able to really get this train back up and running in terms of movie going in the box office, because before this it was a rough summer, but yeah, you know, once again, another solid weekend for Bad Boys Ride or Die, still doing very well for itself. I think it's even going to get a bit of a 4th of July boost this weekend. It may not make enough to crack the top 5 considering the number of new movies coming out this weekend, but still, I still think it's going to continue to do very well throughout the rest of its theatrical run. It's already made so much for itself. Another solid weekend for this movie. Number 3 was Horizon: An American Saga Chapter 1, opening with $11 million this weekend domestically. That total stays the same worldwide, as the international numbers weren't as big enough to make any significant difference in it. When I was talking about my expectations for this movie last weekend, I said this would be a big wild card. It could either tap into something we've never seen before, overperform, and be the big box office surprise of the summer, or this was going to fall flat on its face. And unfortunately, it seems like this film has fallen flat on its face. There just didn't seem to be a lot of interest or real excitement to go check this movie out. Yes, Yellowstone is a very popular TV show, but it's also a very popular TV show. People like watching this at home. I don't think Kevin Costner has that type of draw these days, unfortunately. There just wasn't a lot of interest from a lot of people, like I said. I don't know why they put this out in the summer. Maybe had this come out in the fall during like awards season, this probably would have been able to stand out a bit better, because competing with all these other big summer blockbusters, I think, was a bit, in hindsight, not the best idea. The worst part about this is not only throughout with all of these future movies that are planned to come out, the next chapter comes out in 2 months, believe it or not, with each of them costing, well, all in total, all of them costing around $100 million. This is not a great start, and the word of mouth also does not seem to be great. It got a B- cinema score, which does not spell good news for this movie's legs, and it spells even worse news for chapter 2, which again comes out 2 months from now. So, you know, if this many people saw chapter 1, imagine how many people are going to see chapter 2 with this word of mouth. Who knows? Maybe this movie can still change course. Again, it is 4th of July weekend, so maybe more people will go check it out for the holiday, but I don't know. Things just aren't looking too good for this movie. I mean, yeah, you know, sometimes you got to take a risk, but unfortunately this risk didn't pay off. I don't see this movie really lasting very long in the box office, certainly not for the summer. Unfortunately, this is looking like a pretty big dud overall, sadly. Not a great start for this movie. Number 2 was A Quiet Place Day 1, opening with $52 million this weekend domestically and $97 million worldwide. This is the biggest opening in the Quiet Place franchise, topping the first Quiet Place and Quiet Place Part 2. It is the biggest opening for a horror film this year by a wide margin, topping The Strangers Chapter 1, Night Swim, Abigail, and Imaginary. It is the 4th biggest opening of the summer, topping If, but still sitting behind Bad Boys Ride or Die, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Inside Out 2. And it is the 7th biggest opening of the year overall, topping Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, If, and Bob Marley One Love, but still sitting behind Bad Boys Ride or Die, Kung Fu Panda 4, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Godzilla x Kong The New Empire, Dune Part 2, and Inside Out 2. So another solid opening for a new summer film, you know? Despite, you know, this one not taking the number 1 spot, this is still a really solid opening. I was talking last week how, despite the fact that this was a new Quiet Place film, I felt like, you know, this is a prequel focusing on new characters that might hinder the film's performance. But no, it was able to top the previous entries despite having, you know, none of the previous characters in it, you know, as far as I'm aware. I haven't seen this movie. But regardless, yeah, this is a great start. It shows how Quiet Place is a modern staple in the horror genre, pretty much a new modern horror franchise, modern horror classic. Audiences love checking out these movies. They love the concept and exploring this world, and they were definitely interested in seeing how this whole chicanery started, pretty much. And it's also a much needed win for the horror genre. As I briefly mentioned before, it's been a rough year for the horror genre, so the fact that this movie was able to break out to the degree it has, it's about to become the first horror film of the year to surpass 100 million worldwide, and I think it's definitely going to become the biggest horror movie of the year. Definitely, it's already done that, so it's only going to continue to grow from here. And I think this spells good news for some other horror franchises. You know, Alien Romulus and Smile 2, I think, are also probably going to benefit from the fact that they're also horror franchises as well. Maybe not to the degree of this, but I think we could definitely see something similar to this. And also, audiences do seem to like this for a horror movie. You know, it got a B+ cinema score, which is great for a horror film, and it's also on par with the first Quiet Place's B+ cinema score. Lower than Quiet Place Part 2, but, you know, consistency with the first one is still pretty good too. It's going to be interesting to see how this does in the coming weeks. It is the only horror film of the summer, and like I said, 4th of July weekend. But also, when a horror movie tends to open this big, they tend to drop a bit, you know. They tend to be front loaded in that regard, you know, like what happened with Scream 6 from last year. And while this is probably not going to hurt the film's performance, the film costed $67 million and it's already made that back worldwide. Definitely something to take note of. Hopefully this movie can still prevail over that, and I think it's going to still be able to do that because this opening and the response it's gotten from audiences has just been so good that I see this movie being solid counter programming against the sea of the summer blockbusters and really continuing to do very well. So yeah, a fantastic start for A Quiet Place. Day one, I think this movie is going to continue to do very well, and yeah, just a very solid start. Great opening. And finally, let's end the video off with the number one movie of the weekend, which was, for the third week in a row, Inside Out 2, making $57 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $469 million and a worldwide total of $1 billion. That's right, folks. Inside Out 2 has done what many people thought would be impossible, become the first film of the year to surpass $1 billion worldwide. It's the first film of the year to do that, and that's just wow. Just a fantastic achievement. And keep in mind, folks, we're only in this movie's third weekend. Because of that, it is now the 11th biggest animated film of all time worldwide. It's gonna crack the top 5 probably within the next few weeks, given the strength and the speed it's moving at. This has just been an incredible performance, and definitely worthy of this milestone for sure, as the movie is great. And the fact that this movie has been performing to this degree, as I said, this is type of stuff you'd see for like a Marvel movie or like a big summer blockbuster, your Jurassic Worlds, your Top Gun Mavericks, your Barbies. And the fact that it was Inside Out 2 is definitely astonishing and definitely worth celebrating over, especially when the movie is very good. On the domestic side of things, it's still doing very well. It is now a little over $30 million away from surpassing the $500 million milestone domestically, which will make it the first film of the year to do that. And as I've said multiple times, 4th of July is coming up. It wouldn't surprise me if that helped it get to that milestone very soon. The word of mouth on this has just been so electric. This has just been the movie to see this year, and this spells good news for a lot of other big tentpole movies, some we may be talking about very soon on this show. But yeah, the fact that this movie has been able to reach these heights again is just monumentous. Definitely a much needed win for the movie-going industry. Definitely a win for animation. It's still going very strong, and it doesn't look like it's going to be slowing anytime soon. Well, maybe not anytime soon, as this film's biggest test comes up not just this weekend, but this week rather, as in the movie only has a couple of days really until the next big animated sequel comes out and hits theaters. And while I don't think it's going to stop this film dead in its track, I do think it may steal some of the spotlight away from it, if you know what I mean. And we'll talk about it in a couple minutes here. But I still don't think that film is going to reach the heights of this movie, because the movie has just overperformed on every single expectations, the highest of expectations. I'm not sure if any, like I said a couple videos ago, I'm not sure if any other movie is really gonna reach the heights of this movie. Hell, there might even be a chance that this can rival the domestic total of Incredibles 2. Like, how insane is that? Just to think about that, how massive this movie is doing, that it could even rival the performance of Incredibles 2, which was one of the most anticipated animated movies ever. Just the sheer magnitude of this movie's performance is something that cannot go unrecognized, and it's going to continue to grow throughout its theatrical run. So yes, going to be a big test this weekend to see how this movie does, but I don't think it's going to slow down significantly anytime soon. So yes, another solid weekend for Inside Out 2. Let's see how much further this movie can go, because man, is this a force to be reckoned with. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet, as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. It is 4th of July weekend this weekend, and I just want to wish you all a very safe and happy 4th of July. I hope you all have some fun with your friends and family, seeing the fireworks, enjoying the barbecue, or just having some fun quality time with your loved ones. I hope you all have a safe and happy holiday, and there's a lot of movies to watch this weekend to celebrate the holiday, but the one movie coming out this weekend that I think is going to do a lot of damage to the box office is Despicable Me 4. This is the 4th, or 6th rather if you want to count the Minions films, installment of the long-running Despicable Me franchise. Gru is back, and not only does he have a new kid, but also a former enemy of his who wants to enact his revenge on him, so he has to go into the witness protection program with his family, and also the Minions get superpowers. If you remember a while back, I discussed how this movie, alongside Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine, were the big three of the summer, the movies that pretty much everyone could agree on that would make the most amount of money this summer, and all for good reason. I think this movie is going to continue this trend of very big box office successes, solid openings. Despicable Me has just been a consistently reliable franchise and a big moneymaker. We saw a couple of years ago with how Minions: The Rise of Gru and how successful that one was, that audiences and families still love these movies, and I think this movie's gonna keep the train rolling. Gru is back in the forefront, the Minions are back as side characters. We're going to be focusing more on him and his family, his new kid, and him facing off against a new character played by Will Ferrell of all people. I think that's going to intrigue a lot of people and moviegoers. The marketing in typical Illumination fashion has been excellent. Been seeing tons and tons of promos and ads for this movie all over the place. The buzz is huge with this movie as well. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about how excited they are to go and check this out. And as I've said many times in this video already, it's 4th of July weekend. Obviously, you need to do something with the kids, and thankfully you have a new animated movie to check out. The funny thing is, the one thing that I think could hurt this movie, quote unquote hurt this movie, is, funny enough, Inside Out 2. I think because of how massive that movie overperformed, it may have stolen some of the spotlight away from Despicable Me 4 as the go-to animated movie of the summer, just due to how insanely well that movie is done. There may be a portion of people who go out there and say, I'll decide to see Inside Out 2 instead of Despicable Me 4, just due to how, insanely well it's done and how strong the word of mouth has been on that movie. It's going to be an interesting weekend to see how both these movies go up against each other, but still, I don't think they're not going to do too much damage to each other's box office performance. I still think that movie's going to still, at the end of the day, be one of the biggest animated movies ever, and I still think this one's going to have a very solid weekend. Otherwise, it's just not going to reach the heights of Inside Out 2. Still, I'm expecting very big things for this movie. I think we're going to see a very solid opening here. Definitely one of the bigger openings of the year for sure. But we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that landed the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.